So Elena, so good to see you after 5 years. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your
Yes,
business and what is it that you do?
that's pleasure of mine to see you again after, 5 years period of time. It's relatively not so big time frame, but a lot of things happened. And After we finished our MBA, I did in fact three stages shift because it's quite well known that people making MBA in order to change either location, to change job like the sphere and to
Mm-hmm.
change the role. So for me, it was three types of shift because before I was born and lived and worked all my life in Moscow, in Russia, and I moved in Europe. Now I'm between, I would say, different countries in Europe due to my type of activities I'm doing. And this is completely a different role and functions what I'm doing now, because in Moscow I was working mainly on the side of business development activities in big corporations like automotive, transport, banking. And now I have quite independent business. I'm working on the projects which I like. I'm working with the people with whom I feel synergy,
Okay.
from whom I can learn, and with whom we can achieve certain quite visual results.
Nice.
Well, in a nutshell, what I'm currently doing, my business activities, so I switched into financial sector,
Mm-hmm.
and this is, I would rather describe like asset protection and wealth structuring for different group of investors and private individuals, putting in place legal tax optimized structures because our savings is our earnings,
Yeah.
as well as liaising with governmental and local structures in order to obtain proper license to perform different types of activities per regions depending on the project. Also liaising with banks in order to obtain banking facilities and things like this.
I see.
And type of projects I'm currently involved in, I would rather describe like marriage of traditional finance with technology. Because quite rapidly developing technological progress coming in almost all spheres of our life, and financial sector already transformed by these changes, which
Yeah.
we can observe nowadays, for example, making different online payments, different banking transactions, and it's becoming more and more popular to make a digital type of assets, which gives to assets more flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
which makes assets more secured, more transparent, and it's also helped to eliminate different intermediaries in the chain,
I
which
see.
also reflects in the cost savings.
Yeah, I see. I see. And so
So
how?
that's quite, yes, quite big, how to say, field of activities. And since I mentioned these projects currently going in different regions,
Yeah.
I have quite business contacts in the Middle East, in Asia, in Russia, in United States. So with the current situation, traveling almost impossible.
Yeah.
And due to the type of questions I have to deal with is quite confidential, is quite quite complex, and it's not possible to discuss over the phone or to
Yeah.
make it in some kind of remote discussions.
Okay. And so
That is why
basically,
that yeah.
so basically, how are you guys in this consortium? Because I assume that if you have multiple locations, then business travel is off the table now. No more business travel, right? And so how are you dealing with the whole lockdown? Is it affecting your business directly? Is it affecting the businesses that you deal with? What is the impact on this on your daily operations, without going into too much details? That something you don't want to maybe comment on, but what is, in a nutshell, the actual impact of all of this on your activity?
Well, the actual impact that everything is put on hold because just again, as I mentioned, because of there is no, how to say, chances to meet and discuss, and a lot of people, a lot of parties involved. It's just like, maybe moving some questions which in the ongoing process, but in overall, like everyone sitting at home, reflecting on what is happening and thinking towards which direction we are slowly moving.
Okay, and so so the idea behind this, because I've been getting this question a lot from the people that I'm speaking with, and also in some of the comments on the previous videos, is okay, we're dealing with something that people are more bothered about not knowing what's going to happen next than about what's actually happening. Like they don't mind being at home, they don't mind staying at home, they don't mind waiting in line, they don't mind all those changes that we're facing, but what they are really afraid of is the uncertainty, right,
Exactly.
of the things happening later. So what are the things that you try to push forward to your clients or partners to deal with this uncertainty? Is there a kind of a uncertainty for dummies, if you want to call it like this, or something that could help people just go past the uncertainty?
You're absolutely right describing this current situation the whole world is facing, that we're living in we're going through quite challenging and unprecedented times. And since this virus it came from nowhere, and it spread all over the world, like in no time, covered the whole population, that people now obliged to stay home. They can't have normal social life. They can't make normal business, commercial activities they get used to. And this uncertainty brings quite a lot of frustration. But just for the second, let's have a look back in the history of mankind, and we will see that this type of crisis were quite repeatedly coming into the certain period of our evolution. Like, for example, different world wars or natural disasters or any other pandemic situation. By the way, with diseases much serious than we experience nowadays, which diseases have no chances to recover. That is why I'm more my personal opinion, which I'm trying, because of course each of us has right to have their own opinion. But to my opinion, any kind of crisis we should take like opportunity for further development. It's like opportunity, first of all, for us to upgrade ourselves, to see on certain things absolutely differently, to think what are the advantages we can take from the situation. And the point is that at current stage, we can't make any kind of forecast, because the peak of pandemic situation is not reached yet. Because, okay, China quite successfully managed to take the situation under the control. Now it's on the rising still mode in Europe, United States even worse. But we still should take into account that such poor regions like Africa, Latin America, it still didn't reach yet, where the healthcare system and financial support from the government is way less than we can expect from the most developed countries. So for the current being, we just need to keep it calm, and we just need to project what kind of opportunities it can I would rather say to observe the situation from another side, from another angle.
Indeed, what you touched on regarding countries that are not developed, because up until now we are basically focusing on there was different phases. It really is very strange to have this conversation about the virus, because there was different phases. And so phase one was, okay, there's something, we don't know what it is. Then phase two, oh, it's nothing, don't worry, it's just like the flu. And then phase three, you see what I mean? And then phase three is like, oh, we're all gonna die. And then phase four, no, we're not all gonna die. It's just that it's gonna be annoying for this. And then phase five is, no, it's spreading very fast, and now we have to contain it. And so I think what I think it's just because we just don't know, right? And the way it's spreading, there's a lot of things we don't know, but what we do know is that indeed social distancing works because it has reduced the things. We also know that a healthier hygiene. I mean, for I was talking to my mother, and she said, you know, when you were a kid, and I used to beat you on the hand and tell you wash your hands before you eat and wash your hands 5-6 times a day, and those things, right? So I think common sense.
So she was right.
Yeah. So common sense things about hygiene and those kind of things are basically what's going on. And then you have the economic impact, which is there are countries that are considered to be superpowers, and they're finding themselves not ready to deal with something like this, right? And you have countries that are so poor that at some point, like I was observing the situation in Lebanon, my home country, like there's a poverty issue saying, okay, I have two choices. Either I stay home, but I starve because I'm not working and there's no social security, there's nothing. Or I take my chances and I still go to work and I'll take my chances with the virus basically. So they're offered basically, because in developed countries, we're home, right? We're staying home where we have social security, we have internet, we have Netflix, we have all the basic minimum that we need. In other countries, as you said, it's underdeveloped countries, very limited healthcare system, often corrupted government, often in the sense of all the African and Middle Eastern countries. And so this uncertainty is just, I think, I think at some point when everything is going to be over at some part of the world, we just have to expect and help out the other part of the world. You know, the mayor of New York put a very good metaphor. Not the mayor, the governor of New York State. He said, imagine it as a fire spreading. And so it gets your neighbor's house, but it is going to get to your house unless you stop it at your neighbor's house. So it's not being nice or being good or being bad. It's just in your interest to help stopping it at your neighbor's house as well, because this way it will not spread to your house too, right? And so
exactly. You're giving very good example because again, what we experienced in the past, even the recent fires in Australia, like the whole world was observing, was trying to help, but it still was somewhere far away. But
exactly.
Now you see that the whole population in different part of the world. Even I remember when it started with the lockdown of this city in China, I was in Russia. It was end of January. I was in Russia, and I was waiting for my plane back to Europe, and I already saw the first like sign of approaching situation. And even me, honestly, I was thinking, well, it's happening somewhere far away. Like, even didn't, it even at that point of view, it even didn't reach my mind that almost like nearly in a month and a half, the situation in Europe will be even worse than in China.
Yeah.
Because with European Union and all these open borders,
yeah,
we have absolutely uncontrolled situation. And you know, I have another observation that the nations, the culture of nations who are more organized, who are more self-disciplined, they overcome this crisis with less damages than others. For example, if we have a look at Europe, such countries like Germany, Switzerland, Austria, some Scandinavian countries, they already have quite less bad consequences than, for example, Italy, Spain, well, partly also France. That is why it's also, there is no, how to say, separation between my house and your house. There is, yes, there is a human population which in one way or another influence each other.
Absolutely. With our actions, we're influencing the outcome.
Yes, exactly. And that is why we already, how to say, come across quite common opinion that this is crisis also makes certain shift in how to say awareness of people. What are they doing and how it reflects in our everyday life and the everyday life of our neighbors. Because even again, if for example Europe, United States successfully will take the situation under the control, but this virus go further to Africa and Latin America, where it will be like absolutely, it's even the worst case scenario which we even could imagine. I hope it will not go so far. But if this critical situation will shift to this region, well, there is no, how to say, guarantee that it will not jump back to Europe.
Yeah.
Again, with all these people moving all around the world, because we can't see it, it's impossible.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a test of humanity. Basically, this it's a test of our discipline. It's a test of our living together. It's a test of our resilience. And as you said, and I spoke with Mike the other day about it. Either we come more developed and with more, like either it's gonna slow us down and we're gonna accept, like, okay, I have to wait for my Amazon Prime 2 days instead of waiting 2 hours because some regions they do that. Or we're gonna develop into a point where no more delivery guy. It's gonna be a drone that is gonna pop out this window and gonna hand me my my package, right? And so it brings a lot of opportunity to, as you said in the beginning, it brings a lot of development opportunities. So what would be, if I have to finalize this 30-40 minute session with you, what would be the major outtakes that you would give somebody in your position, like somebody that is working, that has a business, that is struggling with this? How are you dealing with it on a personal level? And what advice would you give to somebody in your position that runs a multi-country business and is dealing with a lot of cultures and everything, just to go through this in a positive way?
Well, I would rather to start with my personal position, that I'm quite optimistic about the future, because nevertheless, any crisis has certain, how to say, evaluation, and maybe still we didn't reach the most like top of this epidemic, but nevertheless, it's still in the process. So we should take the situation as it is. We should take this challenge as the opportunity to upgrade ourselves. And in overall, like again, as I mentioned, to make any kind of forecast towards the business, or like how to survive on the personal private level, it's quite difficult. It's quite hard. The government trying to make any kind of forecast in order to understand how much financial support they need to give people at the current situation. But in overall, I think that we are moving towards the time from, I would say, over-exaggerated consumption of everything towards more sustainable development, like consuming more renewable energy, alternative energy, and the technological progress which already happening now. Because again, 20 years ago, if somebody told you, can you imagine smartphone which combine in one device portable computer, phone, GPS, etc., etc., etc. So we're in the time of the transformation. This crisis gives us enormous boost to move towards this transformation. And I strongly believe that technological progress is the key element to go out through all the bad consequences which we will have after this quite frustrated times. So we should just keep it positive. We should take any opportunity which coming these days towards us, and everything is in our hands.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, then I just wanted to thank you for taking the time for doing this with us today.
Likewise.
I just started this cast a couple of days ago, and a couple of weeks ago, sorry, and then it just took off. It just, some people are calling, and I'm happy to have you also on the
Yeah,
chat.
yeah, that's perfect initiative. I wish you good luck. I wish you stay positive and reconnect with other people across the globe.
Yeah, thanks, Elena. Thanks.